All right, hi everyone, and welcome to this week's product training with Blue Triangle. Today we're going to talk about the revenue opportunity in Blue Triangle and how to pull your revenue opportunity reports from the Blue Triangle API. All right, so my name is Mark, and I'm the support manager here at Blue Triangle, and I do these training sessions each week about various topics related to web performance, analytics, and ultimately how to use Blue Triangle to solve problems. So let's go ahead and get started. For the agenda today, we're going to start with a quick recap of kind of the API basics. So we'll talk about what available endpoints we have, and then we're going to talk about how to connect to the API. There's a couple of headers you'll need to set to authenticate, and we'll show you how to do that up front. And then before we get into the revenue opportunity API endpoint, we're going to just run through the revenue opportunity page and just kind of talk through what is revenue opportunity and what kind of data we're actually pulling. And then we'll get into the API endpoint. There's a few different URLs that you can hit, and we'll talk through what each of those does. And then finally we'll do summary, and then finally we'll walk through how to parse the response from the API, because it's a pretty significant amount of data, and if you're not, and it might be a little confusing at first when you first look at the response from the API that holds the data for the report. So we're going to cover that toward the end, and then finally we'll end with some Q&A. So any questions you guys have that come up during the session, I'm happy to answer those, and we'll save some time for that at the end. All right, so a quick recap of the API. Here is a list of the current endpoints in the Blue Triangle API. If you've joined us before for these API trainings, you'll notice that we've added a couple of endpoints here. One is the revenue opportunity, which we'll be talking about today. And just recently, the beginning of the week actually, we introduced the performance/hits API. This is essentially the same as the performance API, which is everything from page level performance data to business metrics. But instead of like aggregate data, the hits endpoint is going to show you sort of raw data at the page view level. So you'll be able to run really granular API queries and get specific segments of data for targeted analysis of the data. So I won't run through all of these endpoints. I will just mention that aside from the performance/hits endpoint, we have done a training session on each of these other endpoints. So if you're curious about how to pull data from our API, I'm sure that one of those trainings is going to help you out. Most recently, we talked about the content security policy endpoint. I mentioned it quickly in our training this past week about how to create and manage a CSP. It's a pretty straightforward GET request based on a few URL parameters. So anyways, today we're going to focus on the revenue opportunity endpoint, and ultimately this allows you to pull data for your revenue opportunity reports. So real quick, how to access the API documentation, which is super useful. So if you're in Blue Triangle, the portal, you'll see a question mark icon in the top right. If you click that, you can jump straight to the Help Center. And in the Help Center, you'll see a big button for documentation. And inside of that, you'll see a subsection for API documentation. All right. So how to connect to the API. You can do this obviously in a variety of ways. You can use, something like curl. You can use a shell script. You can use Python or any kind of programming language. Basically anything that can send and receive HTTP requests. For this training, we're going to show examples using Postman. It's a really simple to use API testing tool, and we like to use it for requests to our API. It gives you a nice look at the configuration of the request body, if that's something that you'll need if it's a post, as well as the response. So how do you connect to the API? So there's two pieces of information that you're going to need to set. The first is the XAPI email header and the XAPI key header. So the email is going to be the email associated with your profile in Blue Triangle. So you will in fact need to have a login to Blue Triangle, or if you have a shared login with a team, you'll need to get that email as well as your API key. Your API key can be found in your profile, and as a matter of fact, we'll show you that here in a second. Now, the content type header, that'll only be needed if you're doing a post. Any posts to our API are going to use JSON in the body. But for the revenue opportunity endpoint, we're just going to be running GET requests. So there's no need for that third header there. So to find your API key, if you're in the Blue Triangle portal, you're going to navigate to your profile. So if you click the little person profile icon and click View Profile, your API key is going to be listed there in the table of information. So another important point to note is the email and API keys are case sensitive. So be sure to match what's listed in your profile when you set your headers in your request to the API. So here's what an example request looks like. This is Postman, and what we're doing here is a get to api.bluetriangletech.com/revenue opportunity/report date. And we'll get into the difference between just the regular revenue opportunity and the revenue opportunity/report date piece. But essentially, we're doing a GET request, and listed here are the query parameters, prefix, and sales type. Now, we're not showing it here, but over in the headers tab, we do have our email and API key listed there to ensure we are properly authenticated. So that's what the request looks like. And if you're not sure what some of these values are, we'll be going into that in more detail here in a few minutes. But just a kind of a quick example, and what does everything look like when it's configured in a successful request. So and that's what we're trying to show here. Now, the response is always going to be JSON from our API. This is a JSON array, and in this case, it is an array of objects with report dates. So you'll see here in a few minutes how you're able to ping this endpoint or this URL and get the report dates, and then use those report dates to get the actual report data, and we'll show you that here in a few minutes. But before we do that, let's just take a step back and talk about what's revenue opportunity. What do we mean by revenue opportunity? So we're going to go and check out in the Blue Triangle portal. We're going to look at the business analytics revenue opportunity page. So I'm going to pull that up. So here we are in the Blue Triangle portal, and we are currently in the business analytics revenue opportunity page. And we're looking at data for our demo site. And what revenue opportunity is essentially is over a particular time period. In this case, we're looking at 7 days. How much money could you have made if page speed was optimized? So that's what we're looking at here. Right now we're looking at all devices. So down here you can see the revenue opportunity broken out by device, as well as the actual sales broken out by device. You can view it by page, and you can also view the actual sales over time. Now, If you click the desktop, mobile, or tablet cards up here, that's going to filter down the graphs below. And so now we're looking at just desktop data. And here we can see the revenue opportunity by page, which is a nice view. Here we can see that essentially the category page has the most opportunity if we were to optimize the page speed, right? And you can see the same thing over here to the right in a different view. It's in a pie chart. So moving down the page, we get to a section that shows what if the page speed was X seconds faster. And you can change these what if variables here. If 1, 2, and 3 seconds isn't manageable as a performance target for your site, maybe you can lower those and cut them in half and talk about 0.5, 1, and 1.5, just as an example. Now in the table down here, we're showing each page along with the average load time. In this case, we're looking at the time to interactive. So that's what we mean by time for the web page to load. Here's the optimal page speed for best sales. And you can get context around, how much traffic is slower than the optimal page speed. Here you can see the revenue opportunity broken down by page. And this is all for desktop. You're able to flip this to mobile and tablet as well. And then you can see these what if variables broken out by page here as well. Now, one more thing I want to show you. If you click this purple button, this is going to be important when we get into how to parse the API response. So in this case, we're looking at the category page. This top graph, we call it the conversion rate curve. It's a histogram of user sessions by page speed. So, for example, when users experienced the category page at 3.2 seconds, the conversion rate was 11.19%. You may be thinking, well, how do you convert on the category page? That doesn't make any sense. What we mean is if the user traversed the category page and the user's got the page at 3.2 seconds, their conversion rate is going to be 11.19%. And you can see how that trends based on the page load time, or the timed interactive in this case. So there's a few other metrics you can turn on. There's average order value, how many page views per session, bounce rate here as well. Now, the last two graphs I'll point out here is what if users are sped up to X seconds. So on the category page, how would revenue change if users were sped up to X seconds? And X here is on the X-axis. And the other graph down here is what if users are sped up by X seconds for the category page. So for example, if we sped up all users by 0.9 seconds, there's revenue gain of $72,000. All right, so I know that was really quick, but hopefully that gives you an idea of what revenue opportunity is and what kinds of things we're showing on this page, and ultimately what kind of data you're going to be getting in the report from the API. All right, so let's jump back over to the slides here. So we covered what revenue opportunity is. In a nutshell, it is how much more money would you have made if you were to optimize page speed, right? So let's talk about how to access that data via the API. So one last thing to mention about the revenue opportunity report in Blue Triangle. I'm going to pull it up again. this report is going to automatically generate, this 7 days is a rolling time period. Our system is going to automatically generate a new report every day. So that's why you'll see a drop down of reports here. Okay, so pull up the slides again. All right, so there's 2 URLs that you're going to need to hit to pull data from the API for revenue opportunity reports. And as I mentioned before, it's revenue opportunity / report date and revenue opportunity. So let's start with the report date piece. So essentially, this is going to be used to access or list the available reports, and each one is going to have a unique epoch as the report date, and it's going to be how you reference it when you're actually pulling the report data. So you can list all of the available reports. You can also list reports within a certain time period. So if you look over here in the optional parameters, you can specify a start and end time period. Or you can just specify the latest report. Just give me the latest report date. And you can just use the latest parameter there. Now, the required parameters are the prefix. This is your site identifier. It's in your JavaScript tag. If you have any questions about what your prefix is, just reach out to us and we'll point you in the right direction. And the sales type parameter, this is revenue or brand. So revenue is just standard revenue opportunity, but we can also do opportunity as it relates to brand conversions. For example, subscriptions or things like that where revenue isn't necessarily involved, but you'd like to track it as a conversion. All right, so let's look at a quick example of this. This is the same example we had pulled up before. So we're going to say these are the query parameters here. Again, we're doing a GET request to api.bluetriangletech.com/revenue opportunity /report date. And the query parameters here are prefix and sales type. Demo sports is our prefix for our demo site, and the sales type is just revenue. So a pretty straightforward request here. And then the response is going to be a JSON array of each listing out the report dates. All right, the next piece is the revenue opportunity. So this is the URL used to pull the actual report data. Now the important thing here is you're going to specify the report date. If you look in the required parameters, of course we have the prefix and the sales type. And then for this URL, we're going to just specify additionally the report date. So you're going to take one of those epoch times from the previous request, and you're going to plug that into a report date parameter here, and that'll be your request. And a couple of optional parameters. Once you get comfortable with what the data looks like, the response from the API for the report data, you'll be able to kind of filter it down so that maybe you only want the data for a specific device or a specific page name. And you can specify multiple of these. You'll just want to be sure to include them here like this. So a example of this, we're doing a GET request to api.bluetriangletech.com/revenue opportunity. Now here we have our prefix specified, sales type of revenue, our report date. We pulled one of those epochs from the previous request, and we're going to say only give us the desktop device data. And so that's the request, and then here's what the response looks like. It's a JSON structure, and of course here you can see that we're looking at desktop data only. All right, so the last thing I'm going to walk through today is how to parse the response. You may have played around with this endpoint before, and you got the data back, but you're a little confused about what's showing up in the API response. So I'm going to pull up a JSON editor to make this a little easier. So I have a typical response here for a revenue opportunity report. And this is what it's going to look like. Of course, at the high level, we have an object. And then it's going to be broken out into desktop, mobile, and tablet. So if we pop open one of these, we're going to have 30-day sales, performance, conversions, and revenue. And the same is true for mobile and tablet. So what is 30-day sales? 30 is a little bit of a misnomer. You can configure how many days you're looking at. But ultimately, what this is the data grouped by day. And this is your total sales from the revenue opportunity page. So this data is essentially what you're looking at here when we have desktop selected and actual sales over time. So that's what 30-day sales is. Performance is very straightforward. This is the average page speed for each page that you have selected for your report. So that's essentially what you're looking at down here in the table. So that's performance. Now, conversions is a little more involved. If we drop that down, we see each page. And if we go into each page, we're going to have a conversions data object. And if we drop that down, there's a handful of things listed here. Before I get into it, let me just set your frame of reference. What this data is for, let me pull up this graph again. This is essentially for this graph here. All right. So TTI is our performance metric for this particular report. So what's going to be listed here is each cohort in the graph here. So we have 3.2, 3.3 seconds, 3.4, and so on. So that's how we get that information there. The visitors, this is synonymous to sessions. And so if you map the arrays here, the 0 position at 3.4 seconds will have 3,745 visitors. So that's kind of how that works. These are all arrays, and you're going to map them to the page speed. The same goes here for conversion rate. Conversions as well. Average sales. Actual sales here. Revenue. Pages per session and page views. So that's what we have inside now. And again, this is the same for each individual page. So that's what we have under conversions. And finally, under the revenue object here, we have each page broken out. And if you click that, you get two things. You get speed up to X data and speed up by X data. And so you may be already thinking ahead and know that is what the data for these two graphs here. The what if users are sped up to X seconds, and what if users are sped up by X seconds here. And again, that's broken out by page. So here would be the PDP page. So if you open that up, again, you get these two arrays, onload and lost revenue. So this onload here would be the x-axis, and the revenue would be the y-axis. So that's what that looks like here. All right, so hopefully that helps you understand what's inside of this response a little better. And as always, if you have any questions that I don't get to today, I'm happy to get in touch with you offline and help answer any questions that you have or anything like that. So that's all I had for today. I really appreciate your time, everyone. So I'm gonna pause now, and I'm going to check the questions and see if there's anything I can help answer for you guys. All right. It looks like we had one question here. How would you specify multiple devices? Sure. So let me actually pull up Postman and I can show you how to do that. Trying to zoom in a little bit so you can see this. All right. So how would you specify multiple devices? So, and this is going to be the revenue opportunity URL. So obviously you have your prefix, sales type, and report date. And then as optional parameters, you'd be able to specify device. And I was actually doing this before. So you could specify device like that and desktop. And then you would just do that again as another query parameter. So you would specify device, brackets, and then mobile, for example, as well. All right. It looks like that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much for your time. If you do have any more questions, we're happy to speak with you offline. So feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can use any of the emails listed here. Of course, support is support@bluetriangle.com. And also, if you're looking for help, definitely check out our help center at help.bluetriangle.com. All right, guys, that's all we have for you today. Thanks again for your time, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.